Hey, it's Josh. Gosh. Bailey. Today, I want to talk about feeling stuck as a filmmaker. Now, I actually made a video about 2 weeks ago called Feeling Stuck as a Filmmaker, which I impulsively recorded, then uploaded, and then unlisted 5 minutes after publishing. I was feeling pretty down in the dumps and emotional that day, but I've been feeling a lot better since then, and so I wanted to share with you a couple things that have helped me get unstuck as a filmmaker. Now, in that video, I said I was stuck in a hole or stuck in a rut.
Some days I'm just like down in the hole.
And that's a pretty picture, but if I'm being honest, I think being stuck like this is a lot more like constipation. So, let's talk about remedies. It's for diarrhea. So, the opposite of what I'm talking about. So, let's talk about remedies. You can CGI that, right? Number one, it's the obvious one. You just gotta make stuff. But more importantly, you got to embrace the suck. The only way you're gonna get better is by being bad for a while. You know, like they say, the only way to write a good screenplay is to write a lot of bad screenplays. You just kind of have to accept that fact and have fun along the way of making some stuff that you're gonna look back later and say, oh, that wasn't very good. That's how you grow as a filmmaker. You fail forward. It's actually really hard to learn from success. You learn a lot more from your mistakes than you do your successes. Because when you do something correctly the first time, it's kind of hard to know what you actually did right. But it's glaringly obvious when you make mistakes, and then you can not do those things in the future. Lesson learned. I think this also applies to just the projects you're working on, of helping the ball continue to move forward, even if it's not going to be quite what you envisioned or quite as good as you thought it would be. On the project I'm working on right now, I'm gonna have to do some visual effects and special effects. There's a part of me that's like, oh, should I even do this? Because it's not gonna look as good as I want it to. But really it's because, we watch Marvel movies and all these giant blockbusters. If you watch those movies, the CG is so good, but watch the credits on those movies. It's like 5 minutes of VFX artists' names. So it's not even fair to compare himself to something of that caliber and that level. I will continue to get better. It's going to take time and it's going to take practice and actually making things and then improving. And so you just got to know that the stuff you make now is not going to be good as the stuff you make later. Don't treat the project you're working on like it's the last thing you'll ever make. I think this happens a lot, especially with people who are making their first feature film. It's like really easy to be like,
this is it. This is my one shot to show them what I'm made of.
And then you start to panic because you're like, oh man, but it was my dream to do this thing. And oh, wouldn't this be funny if we did this? And ooh, this scene will be scary if we do this. And then what happens is you're trying to throw everything into this pot and you're just making this nasty stew where there is no tone to the movie, there's no focus. So it's better to not do that. When your film tries to become everything, it starts to become nothing. You just get this movie that's like really unfocused and all over the place, and it becomes The Room, which is a very entertaining movie, but probably not getting the audience reaction you intended to out of it. Actually, if you're lucky, it becomes The Room. Usually it's just really bland and really boring. Number 3, put the project aside and work on another one. This is actually what helped me get unstuck from 2 weeks ago. I had been working on this one project for a while, and I got to the point with it where I wasn't really making any progress. I just kept in my head almost fundamentally trying to change what the idea would be or come up with a different version of it, and it just wasn't working. I was just getting so frustrated in my head and putting all this pressure on myself because I couldn't make it work. And then I was like, what if I just stopped working on this and I worked on a different thing? And then I had a new idea come to me the next day. And that other idea is still there if I figure out a way to make it work in the future, or if I want to come back to it. Number 4, work a little bit every day. So I know this is a thing they say with musicians and practicing. It's better to practice like 5 minutes a day than to practice for 1 or 2 hours once a week. any filmmaking practice, if you do it a little bit every day, it just becomes second nature. But I think on top of that, another part of it is that you just create less pressure because it's just an everyday thing. What I used to do was I would go to a coffee shop like once a week or once every 2 weeks and like try to be there for 3 or 4 hours and do some writing and come up with ideas. That puts a lot of pressure on yourself to be like, okay, this is my small window that I've delegated for me to come up with this masterpiece of an idea. It's just way less pressure when it's like, okay, cool, I'm gonna spend my 30 minutes working on my writing, or whatever time you've carved out or where you can find it in the day. It just puts you so much more at ease. It makes you so much more comfortable in your relationship with working on things. And number 5, if none of this other stuff is working, another thing you can try to do is add limitations. I mean, this is just a good idea in general for indie filmmakers because you don't have all the budget in the world for location and actors and effects and such. But it's also great because you kind of let yourself off the hook a little bit and just free yourself up to create. If you can create a time element of like, okay, cool, I'm going to make a short film in 1 week. That doesn't leave a lot of time for you to overthink anything. And I am a chronic overthinker, so this is very helpful for me. Another challenge I was thinking about is limiting the number of shots. I think this would be a really great way for you to think about your composition and your blocking. You know, make a short film that only has 10 shots in it. So yes, adding limitations, and especially if you're starting out, I think adding time limitations of just pushing yourself to create more is a really good way to go and a really way to improve quickly. And you know, I'm totally talking to myself here too. This is something I would like to do because I have made so little films over the last 5 years. You know, people I really look up to, like Joel Haver, he puts out short films weekly, and that is so freaking cool. He has such a huge library of stuff. Social House Films, they put out a film a month. Doom Productions up here in Portland, they put out so many feature films over a short period of time. Dan Laud's a bunch of feature films, his 12 features in 12 months projects. That's so cool. So that's it, that's all I've got. Go out there and make some movies. Don't put too much pressure on yourself and make sure you have fun while you do it. It's really easy to start taking all this so seriously and almost have your identity wrapped up into it, and you start to forget that you like to do this because it's fun. You have fun doing it. So make sure that you're still having fun while you're doing it, even if that means, you know, it's not going to be a perfect movie. It's going to be something which is a lot better than nothing and will help you to become a better filmmaker. I'll see you guys next time.